Welcome in this new video on stellards.io, and today we are getting technical. We are going to touch our REST API that we have for you, and we will show you how you can get started from setting up your table and creating an API key to use the Postman tool, popular with everyone who uses the REST APIs, to use that Postman collection to perform your first REST API accesses to stellards.io. We'll show this with CRUD operations that we will perform on a new created table. So let's move to Postman, our REST API, and let's dive technically into the REST API of stellards.io. And here we are on our stellards.io website. And first of all, let's have a quick view on the available REST API for you. We find that under documentation and under Swagger, you can see all the REST API endpoints that are available with some documentation. And here you can also actually through Swagger test our REST API, which we will not do in this demo because we will be using Postman. First of all, let's see the different categories of REST API calls that exists. And first of all, we have the REST API endpoints that work on your data, the table data, and here you can get the records from a table, you can add records, remove records, update records. These endpoints are all available and work on the data in tables for you. We can also manipulate the metadata of your project's tables via the REST API, and here we have everything that is related to adding, modifying or removing fields in a table. So that's also something that you can do with our REST API. OAuth related API calls, quite simple. Here you get your access token, or you can revoke an access token. You can also query your unique project ID via a REST API, via the project-related REST API endpoints. And in terms of metadata, you can of course also add, remove, modify tables. And so the table-related REST API endpoints allow you to do that. So, as I explained, we have prepared a collection of Postman API calls for you that you can easily use yourself. So under this video, you will find this actual link that allow you to start yourself using Postman to access our REST API. And so what I do is open this Postman collection, and as I will want to start work on it, the first thing I do is fork this collection, make it my own collection so that I can modify it, and I will want to modify it because I want to set my own parameters, of course, the parameters like my own access token, my own project ID, and finally also the unique table ID that I will be using here in this demo. And so if we look at the variables that I will need for my performing my REST API calls, the variables that I have is the access token. So we will use a directly usable API key or access token. In a moment, we'll get that from the stellards.io application. My project ID, the unique ID for my project, and also the unique ID for my table. And we will be performing get data, so we get the information of records in our table. We will add some data to this table, and we will also update and delete some records. Let's go back to our application. So I choose Manage Database. And the first thing that I can do is already set my project ID. When I click it, it has been copied, and I can simply set it this way as my variable. Next thing that I will do is go to the table that we want to use in this demo. Here I already prepared a table for that, the video demos table, and that contains by default always the unique key field for my table, and also the name and the city, two text fields, two simple fields added in this table. The unique ID for this table, as you can see, is 287, so that's also something that I can already define here as a variable. As you can see, my table is empty, so everything starts from scratch, and we'll see in a moment that I can add data here this way. Next thing that I need to do is create my access token so that I can gain access to my table via the REST API. And for that, I go under Applications, I select the API keys method, and I will add my new access token. Let's call this test, and let's make this valid for 30 hours in this case, with admin permissions, so that I'm sure that I can do everything. And as you can see, my unique API key has been created here. When I click it, it is copied to the clipboard, and I can easily paste it here in Postman. And that should be sufficient to get me started to use this REST API. And we'll start by performing add a record. So we'll insert some data into this table. Everything is set right here in this Postman collection in terms of using the access token, the project ID, and the table ID. The only thing that I need to do is add in the body of my endpoint call the information that I will set or send as a record to our table. And so I will use here some data. So we have the name field, remember that, and the city field. And as a city, I set here, for example, Bruges, a city in Belgium. And so this is the body that I will send to via the REST API call to stellards.io. Let's execute send. And as you can see, my access token is not valid, and there is a reason for that. If I go here, I need to save these parameters so that I can use them. And once saved, I execute it. And now you can see that this REST API call was successful and the record was inserted. That is something that we can verify if we go back to tables and the video demos table, inspect the data, and here you can see that this record was successfully inserted. And so I can continue with adding more records like this one, for example, John from Paris. And we can add multiple records. In fact, let's add another one like Mike, and Mike from the city New York, for example, like this. And let's see, when I sent this request, you can see it was successfully executed. And when I update or refresh the data, I go to fields, back to data, you can see that I have 3 records now, and you can see the unique ID for each of these records here in the first field. And that immediately also allows us to get the data. So when I execute the get data request, you can see here the JSON that returned with 3 records found and returned this way. If I now want to get rid of, for example, Mike, I would perform the delete API call, and here I use the ID for value 4, and when I execute that request, you can see it was successful, and when I go to my data, you can see that Mike was deleted. And finally, I can also perform an update. So let's now update this record. And here I need to specify the ID. Let's say that I move to a different place. Then here I could specify my ID, which is 2. and I specify it like this. And the new value for that record, that would be name, and the name will not change. I will keep it as Bruno, but let's update my city and let's make this a new city, Brussels, for example. And let's send this request, and now let's see the data, and you can see that here my record, the city, was updated to Brussels. And so with this example, I think I've shown you how easy it is to get started with our REST API, how easy you can be up and running to deal with your centralized data on the stellards.io data store. So feel free to create a stellards.io account, and you can play with this Postman collection yourself to manage your own data on stellards.io. Interested in more content like this? Don't forget to subscribe on this link here below, like this video, and you will be updated when we have more content for you. Thanks for watching today, and I wish you a lot of fun experimenting with our stellards.io REST API.